first, I'm not a feminist, not the modern day feminist, because modern day feminism is these days about taking advantage at the cost of men and playing the equality card as and when you need it. So I'm definitely not a supporter of that. But yes, there is something, if you are a woman and you've been doing this for a while, then you're actually messing things up for yourself and for others. Because there is something very important that as women, as human beings, we need in order for our talent to thrive. And that is opportunities. Opportunities are very important. And I'm pretty sure that in this college, you have a number of opportunities at your disposal. But you're at the verge of entering the real world, and in the real world, I'm pretty sure it won't work like your college. The bare realities of the real world are that you will not get opportunities here and there every time. So are we ready to face some reality check today? You can be with me in the talk while I'm asking questions. I'll be glad to make it an interactive thing. Anybody can tell me, why do we celebrate the Women's Day? Anybody, if you can raise your hands and tell me. Why do you think we celebrate the Women's Day? Anyone? Alright. We celebrate the Women's Day to, yeah, go ahead.
To empower the women and to create confidence in them for, उनका confidence बढ़ाने के लिए कि वो अपने dreams achieve कर सकते हैं.
To empower the women. Basically, we celebrate the Women's Day and days like Girl Child Day to highlight the discrimination between men and women that is there in the society. And the discrimination is so inherent that it comes out in the kind of language that we use. For example, have you heard of the term working woman? It's a very common term that we use in our everyday language. Working woman is somebody who's doing work other than the household chores and is earning out of that work. But have you heard of the expression working man? It has a funny ring to it. Nobody uses an expression like a working man. Because working is an inherent part of being a man. When I say man, I understand that working is a part of that. However, when I use working with the woman, it acts as a qualifier. And that is something that we have to change gradually. Of course, we need women in that because we are the ones who are going to change that, and we need men in that because if minorities need to bring a change, the majority has to be with them in their support. Now the problem with changes are that the longer the time that particular situation has prevailed, the difficult it is to change that. It's like nuts and bolts. More corrosion is there on nuts and bolts, longer and more effort will be required in order to bring that change. For me, if I talk about myself, I was born in a family which was not really wanting in anything as such. I was a girl child who was actually welcomed and cherished. I was born after years of my parents' marriage, so I did not really have to face the regular discrimination in the conventional sense. In my parents' language, they brought me up like a boy. That's the maximum gender neutral wording that they could use, bringing me up like a boy. But does it make sense? It's like bringing up a bird like to be a fish or something like that. Doesn't make any sense. But it's not on them because that's the maximum gender neutrality they could achieve in their own language. It's important to achieve that kind of a stage where we do not need talks like this, where we want to achieve a change wherein Women's Day is not required to be celebrated. If my family was supportive of the things, does that mean that I never had to face any kind of a discrimination in the society? Well, nothing like that, because when you work, you have to be in the society, you have to face everything that comes with the society. And what do you do in turn? Gradually you will bring up little fights to kind of face it. Of course, initially when I told that I wanted to be a wildlife photographer, it did not make any sense. But what do? Gradually you start fighting back. Of course, when you see that there are not a lot of females that are actually practicing something like this, and when you go out, you're the only female in the entire crew. What do? Gradually you start to revert, gradually you start to fighting back. And I did the same. I saw that the opportunities are less, of course, because it's a very, wildlife photography is quite a male dominant field. And there are other fields also. If I talk about LLB, I was told that being advocate won't make any sense because quote unquote, who would want to marry a lady lawyer? You hear things like, इतना शूट मत करो धूप में टैन हो जाओगे या थोड़ा मेकअप लगा लो डार्क स्किन छुप जाएगी. All these things are the things that come with the women, but that doesn't mean that I think that men and women are same in terms of their physical capabilities. Of course they are different. The problem starts when we take that rosy approach when we talk about women. I have a problem with that particular sensitive approach when women are discussed. And they are discussed as a matter of fact. But what do we do about the discussions? That's the problem. I was not allowed to travel alone till I turned 26 because of course wildlife photography, females come karti hai and it's not really safe. I'm not blaming my parents of course because they wanted things to work out in my benefit. But that's how things are. Is it, too intense? Alright, so let's talk about something you guys can better relate to. Tell me if you have a hobby. Anybody of you has a hobby? Raise your hands. Tell me if, now I need a proper raised hand. Tell me if you think your hobby is your passion. Properly raised hand. Okay. Now I need 100% here. Tell me if you want your hobby or passion to be in a profession at a later stage. Give me a properly raised hand, 100%. Give me just 10% more. Just your last 10%. Proper raised hand. Alright. This 10% that you did in the end is actually going to matter in your entire life. Nothing else. Now, if you are a female, that 10% can at times be 20. If you are going for an unconventional career, and you have to walk an extra mile, being a female, at times, that extra mile can turn out to be 2 miles. But trust me, it's nothing you can't handle. If I talk about myself, how things turned out for me, in the school, I was this shy, fat girl who used to sit in the corner most of the time. And I could barely make to the playground. But when the school was over, I saw people uploading those display pictures with the blur in the background on Orkut. Now to you Gen Zs, Orkut was the Facebook and Instagram of my time. And those pictures were like very regular and I was like, what is this? The blur in the background. That time you couldn't create with Instagram filters. There was something called as a DSLR that you had to get in order to achieve that blur, the bokeh. So somehow I pestered my father, tricked my father into getting me one. Of course, it was sure that I had to pursue my LLB at that time because he always wanted me to be an advocate and no complaints, I love being an advocate. So, I got that DSLR and the problem started. Not for me, but for my parents because now I started bunking classes in order to learn photography, in order to understand the fundamentals, in order to understand how the camera works. Gradually, I realized that birds are something that are catching my attention a lot. I used to go out often in order to shoot birds and finally I thought why not take a proper class in order to delve deeper into photography. Of course initially the class had to happen in the jungle, so initially it was a no, but then gradually I pestered my parents somehow into letting me to go to that class. Now 3 Idiots sabne dekhiye to laga ki it's a very rosy thing. You take your camera, you picture whenever something interesting comes. It was nothing like that. I was told to wake up at 5 AM before the sunrise, peak winter. I was told to carry all my gear, everything so heavy, inside the jungle, and to sit in a marshland next to some random cow dung and bird shit and capture some birds. Didn't make any sense to me at that time because the birds were not even there and we were not even sure if the birds would come out. Gradually the birds came, I clicked the pictures, and right before that I decided for myself that I'm going back after this nonsense is over. But while looking at those pictures, there was this one particular photograph that struck my mind. Now, these birds were Sarus cranes, if you've heard of. These are huge white birds with red necks and orange beaks, and they make a sound when they call. They looked above, they made a sound, and the male flares its feathers. It's like a skirt that forms. It's a whole lot of a belly going on there. It was a beautiful sight. The fog was falling on them, the golden hour was there, the light was falling on them, sight lit, lovely. And in that moment, I realized that everybody from my generation, or let's say majority from my generation, is not going to come out, wait for 3 hours just to see these little phenomena in nature that keep on happening. People of my generation are busy on social media, going through different stuff, reels making worse these days, other stuff, just constantly, or if not social media, then working constantly on their laptops and computers. And nobody has that kind of a time to just go out in the jungle and observe a bird. So why don't I be the bridge between my own generation and the insides of the wood? And that is the moment where I found my purpose. And trust me, the day when you find your purpose, work won't be work again. People will come and go, people will keep telling you stuff, people will keep telling you that you're not perhaps the right fit for that particular thing. They will keep on passing judgments. We keep on passing judgments all the time. That's a very common thing. It's important to not take an aggressive approach and just keep doing what you're doing. These judgments will be toned down and gradually become suggestions, and the suggestions one day will come from the people who will be standing on the other side and getting maybe motivated by one of the talks that you're giving. So it's very important to keep going, and if you think that it's making sense to you right now, I can assure you that it's worth giving a try. Thank you.